I just want to talk about the ads, because everyone and their mother is seeing all of these vote no from the coalition against. Vote no. And it is easy when you see those ads and they give really compelling reasons. It's going to cost $3 billion. Your premiums are going to go up. Wow, wee woo. The world is going to end if we get more nurses. When you see all those ads out there, it's for one reason and one reason only. Because they have the money. They have the money to do so. They have all the money in the world to put up all those ads. The coalition for the Massachusetts Nurses Association, who wrote the bill, who are made up of nurses, 23 or 28,000 nurses from Massachusetts are part of that union, and they represent those nurses who actually wrote the bill, don't have the kind of money that the coalition against has. And let me tell you where this money is coming from. So the coalition to protect patient safety, that's the coalition against, has raised more than $13 million since January of 2019. You're saying, wowzers, that's a lot of money. That's a good amount of money to put in those ads, right? Yes, let me tell you where the vast, and when I say vast, I mean 95%. So 95% of those funds have come from the Massachusetts Health and Hospital Association. 95% of this money is coming from the Hospital Association. The same hospital association that was against the bill when it passed in California. The same hospital association that cares only and only for the profits it makes at the end of the fiscal year. The company, the money that is used to be putting out all of these vote no ads is not coming from nurses that are just super worried about what's going to happen. I said 95%, so 5% of that money. Of course, maybe I have no idea who's the rest of the 5%, but I do know the vast majority, the 95%, the reason you were seeing all those ads on TV is because the Hospital Association, which by far their number one goal and their number one priority is the amount of money that these hospitals will make at the end of the fiscal year. They do not care. The last thing on their mind is nurse satisfaction. Forget about patient satisfaction. They just care about their wallet's satisfaction. Okay? So I think there's two major ads out there. So number one, there's nurses that are coming on, and you see these ads where nurses are saying, this is taking my autonomy away. I'm not going to be able to, the government's going to be running my, no. I disagree with that entirely, but that is a subjective. You think that, I disagree. If you actually read the bill, it's not taking your autonomy away. It's keeping your practice safe, is the way I see it. But that's another conversation for another day. The other ad that you'll see out there, the big one, is the one that they say, this is going to cost $1 billion a year. It's going to blow up Massachusetts budget. There's no way we can afford it. It's in the craziness about how much it's going to cost, right? I do want to let y'all know that there have been various studies, there's been multiple studies done on how the cost of this bill is going to affect Massachusetts. A study conducted by Boston College nursing economist Judith Schindel Rothschild found that the total cost of implementing the proposed nurse-to-patient staffing limits in Massachusetts would be about $35 million to $47 million per year, necessitating a 2 to 7% increase in the number of nurses employed. So this is important, right? So this is a Boston College nursing economist. She's an economist that is a nurse. She does nursing economist. That is her job. That's what she does. That's all she does, right? She did the study. She said, went through it. 2 to 7% increase in how many nurses are going to be needed for this bill for the hospital. So oblige with the actual ratios stated in the bill. And she came up with the numbers $35 to $47 million a year. And you might say, Q, wait a hot second. Wait a hot second, because the numbers I hear in the voting no ads or in just out there in the world is the $900 to $1 billion a year moving forward, which is insane. And I've said it myself in previous videos, that number is insane. It's super, super high. But the actual study is going to be in the link below. You can look at it. It's thorough. Very thorough. And she even added the 2 to 7% increase for the nurses that are going to need to be hired. The other study, that $900 million per year number, came from The Health Policy Commission, a state agency charged with monitoring healthcare delivery in Massachusetts, put out estimates that question 1 would cost somewhere between $676 million and $949 million per year. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that the disparity between those two numbers are mind-boggling. I mean, it's not $100 million. It's literally $800+ million difference between the two suggestions, between the two studies. They both either super off, or one study is just plain wrong. Those are the two options here, because those numbers are very different. So let me tell you, when they asked the Boston College professor, the economist, the nursing economist professor, why are the numbers such a difference, she says the biggest difference between her figures and those calculated by Health Policy Commission is that the commission's model assumes that nurse staffing limit will produce far greater levels of wage inflation, upward of 6%. So that is why there's such a disparity between the two studies, between those two calculated numbers of how much it would cost. The Health Policy Commission, when they did the study, they assumed that the nurse, not just adding the amount of nurses that are going to need, the 2 to 7% of nurses that are going to need to be added to the workforce to meet those ratios, not that, also adding a 6% increase in the wages of all nurses. And when I say all nurses, I don't mean the nurses that are hired or the nurses that are already working in hospitals. I mean literally every single nurse. And the professor said it herself. She continues by saying, not only did they assume a 6% wage inflation, but they assumed it for every nurse working in Massachusetts, regardless of if they work in hospitals or not. She continues on. They said if wages go up in hospitals, they'll go up across the board for every nurse, no matter where they work. I'm a nurse on a faculty of at Boston College, and there is no way they're increasing my salary by 6%, which I think is just of course not, right? Like, let's just think about this logically, right? Nurses that work in hospitals right now get paid more than nurses that don't work in hospitals. So to make the argument that all nursing salaries are going to increase by 6%, whether they're not in hospitals or not, is berserk, is insane. Yes, I do have to agree, right, that they might increase the wages for nurses that work in hospitals, might increase a bit in the beginning because they're going to need an incentive to get these nurses to come into the hospital. But a 6% increase? Let's be real. Not in hospitals, not in acute care hospitals, all nurses everywhere in Massachusetts. A 6% increase in wages, along with the 2 to 7% increase in the amount of nurses that are going to be needed in these hospitals. Source, please go to the source. Read both studies. Read both of these situations and see how they were calculated. That number, that $900 million, is not true. It's just not true. Unless, if you honestly believe that all wages for all nurses across the board, including the ones that are not in hospitals, are going to raise by 6% the day this bill passes moving forward, by all means you can believe that. But that's the assumptions they made, and that assumption just seems out of this world. Would I love a 6% increase? Of course I would. I would love a 6% increase, but that's bullshit. We all know that that's just straight bullshit. So you have the information, the link below, studies from both parts, the Health Commission policy and from the Boston College study, from a nursing economist. And you guys can make those decisions for yourself moving forward.